All right, in this video, we're going through Year 10 Main Maths, and I'm going to talk about how to use the calculator and what you need to do in order to use and be proficient with your calculator, because there is a calculator section which goes for 10 minutes, and you get 15 marks for that. And this question that we're going to talk about on page 33 of your notes is almost identical to what you would probably expect to get on a test, okay? We don't necessarily ask you nice, easy numbers, because if we'd ask you nice, easy numbers, then you could probably work it out by hand almost. You need to use the calculator for this section. Now, what does that mean? We need to sketch a graph, and also we need to use the calculator to sketch the graph, and any key points such as intersections, we need to do that and do everything in the calculator, and then it spits out the answer and we can sketch the graph, okay? So if I go down to here, now it's actually got the instructions here, and I'll explain this as we go, but it's saying that it says use your calculator to sketch these lines. Is that in gradient intercept form? Is this in gradient intercept form? Is that in y equals mx plus c form? It actually is. What's m? What's the gradient for the thing I've just circled? 4/3. Yeah? What's c? There you go. Notice it's just the other way around. Okay. Okay. Is this in y equals mx plus c form? No. No, it's not. Why do you notice that the y and the x are on the same side? Now, of course, we could rearrange by hand, but we wouldn't do that when we're in a CAS section, would we? Because it would take long. Now, I'll show you what the calculator's doing. Okay. Now, if I've got pi x plus 3y is equal to 12, and I want to get y by itself, what would I have to do to both sides to get rid of the pi x? No, it's pi. So if you think about this as plus pi x, I want to subtract pi x away, don't I? Well done, Ben. Okay, now, if I do that, of course, that cancels it out on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is going to be 3y is equal to 12 subtract pi x, okay? Pi is just 3.14159, etc., etc. That's all it is, just a number, no difference. So the gradient is it's not pi or minus pi, because we need to divide that by what? I want y equals, so what am I dividing by? 3, thank you, Archie. Okay. Now, the thing is sure, we can do that. 12 minus pi x divided by 3 is the answer. But the thing is your calculator is going to do some funny things. In actual fact, it says that if you solve it, it's got a negative out here. But notice, negative pi x, we've got that. Negative times a negative is a positive, isn't it? Would you agree that that's 12? Okay. And would you also agree that we've got a 3 on the bottom? Might look a little bit different, but it's the same thing, okay? So this is how we sketch these, and I'm going to obviously show you ones in this video, and then you can watch it as many times as you like, and you pass it on to your friends, because this is what we need you to do. I know that in Year 9 you would have looked at this stuff, but how much have you retained? Well, you don't need to retain anything, because I'm teaching you from scratch, okay? And you can watch this as many times as you want. Here's the cool thing. If you are in a Microsoft Word document and you want to copy something, what do? Control C. It works the same in this calculator. What about if you paste? Control V. It works, okay? What we've got to do, though, is we've got to solve this function in terms of y. That's what you would type in the calculator. I'll show you now anyway. So what we're going to do, notice, what does that mean? It means that I'm getting in the equation in y equals mx plus c form. You notice that this thing here, that is in y equals mx plus c form, but it looks very ugly. Okay, it looks ugly because it is. We ask you uglier questions with calculators. Okay, so if I was to do that, now, of course, when I do that, what I want to do is I've got to sketch 2 lines. We want to find the axis intercepts, and we also want to find the point of intersection. You also need to label both graphs as well. Okay, this is how we're going to do it. First of all, we go to our calculator screen. Let's just say for the time being that we want, the first thing we're going to do is transform that thing that we talked about, this thing here. We're going to get the calculator to do that for us rather than do it by hand. If you're doing it by hand, you're going to run out of time, aren't you? So how do we do that? We go to the home screen, and we don't want the graph screen. By the way, never, ever, ever go calculate on Scratchpad. Why? Because Scratchpad does some really funny things. What you want to do is we're on a new document, okay? No, and what we want to do this time, though, we'll go to the calculator section, okay? Now, solve, you could actually type in SOLVE. You could type it in, but that would be a waste of time. You could also go menu, then we're looking at algebra, aren't we? Menu 3, 1. Now, menu 3, 1 for solve is the shortcut. So I'm going to do this really quickly. I'll show you. You can watch this over and over again. Menu 3, 1. Then we put the equation in. Okay, what are we solving? We've got that equation, which was it pi x? Let's do that. Where's the pi button? There it is, down the bottom left. Helena, do you not have your calculator with you? Do you going to try this as we go, or? Because remember, you can always watch back the YouTube if you wanted to. Now, okay, so we're solving for pi x. Now, you can do pi, a lot of the time, sometimes it can treat pi x as like its own variable. So let's do pi times x. Okay, and if I go back, we want plus 3y is equal to 12. Okay, so plus 3, we're just putting that, plus 3. You can put a times in there if you like, but you should still get the same result, is equal to 12. Now, believe it or not, the calculator, look, it has more power than what they did to get people to the moon. But it is still not incredibly smart at all, because you need to tell it what to do. What are we solving for in terms of? We want it in terms of what? Y. So what do we tell the calculator? Comma y means that we're solving and we want it to be in terms of y. So where's the comma? It's below the pi. Can you see that? The bottom left? There's a comma there. Put a comma in. Y. Press enter. Boom. There it is. That is exactly the same thing that I did, except it looks a little bit different. Okay, feel free to just use what the calculator does. Okay, now notice what happens, Kiara, when I press enter. Where's the cursor at the moment? Notice it's actually here. Notice it goes to here. What you can do though is if it goes there, if you press up, notice that it highlights that. Now, can I get you to press Control C? Control C, because we're going to copy that, because we're going to sketch that. Control C. Do you understand? All good? Now, I want to paste that somewhere. We want to paste that in the graph screen, don't we? Would you agree? Okay, so what we do is we go to Home, and then, look, don't use Scratchpad. You can click on this one here. You can go across if you want, and cross. You just go to there, opens up a new document, F1 of X. Let's go Control V, Control and V. Now, the good thing about this is because these new calculators, it's actually determined. If I go back to here, if I go to Documents, okay, can you see there? It's actually overridden the fact that we've got y equals. But you in the old calculators, you had to delete it. You had to delete it because this is. Can you see there that this here, this little F1? This F1 of X is just like something as a function of X. What is a function of X? Y. Okay, so we know the calculator doesn't recognize in the graph screen Y. It recognizes F1 of X because you can have many different functions in terms of X. Okay, now, what was the button I pressed to now add another thing? Tab. Thank you, Guy. You were listening yesterday. Now, you want to work smarter and not harder. You also want to save yourself time and be efficient. I think you would agree with that. So, the other graph that we're looking at, and I'm going to rub all of this out, is the other graph that we need to sketch is this baby here. Okay, see this one here? Now, notice there's two fractions. and you've got a y equals. Well, we don't really care about the y equals because now we're looking in terms of the calculator. We're looking at f2 of x. That's just another line, or it could be any equation. It doesn't have to be a line. Now, how do I get a fraction to come up? It saves itself time. Control divide. Okay. Now, what I tend to do, and this is just my preference to save me time, is I've got two fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, going to press plus, and I'm going to do control divide again. Why do you think I might do that before I start entering things? Why do you think I might be doing this like this way? Do you think that maybe me doing this for 10 years this way might be because I think it's the fastest way? Okay. If you don't want to do it this way, you don't have to. Okay. You could do it. So you could do fraction for x. Now, I'm just going to put it in exactly the same order it was in the notes in the question. It was 9/2, not 4.5 or anything like that, but 9/2. It's the same thing as 4.5. And then what we had is we had 4x/3. Would you agree with that? Press enter. Okay. Now, what are we asked to find? If I go back to here, what is it saying? Label all axis intercepts and the point of intersection of the lines, correct to 2 decimal places or exact. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way you do it. It's either the exact answer or we're happy with 2 decimal places. So what we're going to do is, though, do you think if I did this, do you think that I'd get all your marks? No. What are we missing? We're missing labeling it, which graph is which. We're also missing axes. We're also missing, I don't think they're to scale. We haven't gone to any scale here. Notice that if I alt tab back to this, things actually go up in ones. And you can tell your calculator to go up in 1s, 2s, 4s, 6s, whatever. But the default is that it goes from -10 to 10 in the X, and it actually goes from 1 to 6.67 in the Y, 0 to 6.67 in the Y. You can change that if you like. We'll go into how later, but for the time being, let's leave it at that, and we can go into that. The settings, you'd go menu. You could actually go to graph settings to change that. And I'll go through that in a second. Now, we want the intersection. We want when those 2 points intersect. So, again, we can use shortcuts, but we're in menu. And what do we want to do to the graph? Do you think we want to table it? Do we want to trace it? Do we want to zoom it? Do we want to analyze it, do you think? We do. And which one would it be? Intersection. What would be the shortcut to that? Menu 6-4. If you pressed, I'm going to go back, I'm going to press the menu, and look at this. Instead of going menu, then go to analyze graph, you can just go menu 6-4. Okay? Just did that in one go. Can you see how that's faster? Okay. Now, what happens is you then have what's called a lower bound. Now, lower bound only works. It works for intercepts. It works for intersections and things like that. Yeah? What we're going to do is we're going to start with the intersection first. I can't start there, because if I start there, it's never going to find an intersection. No intersection within that bound. Do you see what I'm saying? So let's try it again. Menu 4-6. It's not menu 4-6, is it? There you go. Let's try it now. Menu 4. Okay, we're lower bound. Okay, so now what we do is we click. Now you click the little mouse button, which is this thing over here. See this thing here? All right, you click that like a mouse. Okay, so what you do is you click that. Then it says upper bound, and we drag it across, and you can see there. Can you see there that it's got this? And look, sometimes the other equations and all the information gets in the way. So as I scroll across, can you see the little hand come up? Is that hand grabbing anything yet? How do we make it grab? We tap, okay, and basically that hand will grab, okay, and you can practice that. I'm going to move that around. Right, there it is. Now, we know, correct to, let's say, 2 decimal places, that there is my intersection. All right, now later on, we can solve simultaneous equations. You'll actually find the intersection is when we solve them. All right, we'll get to that later though. Now, that's an important point. what about the X-intercepts, do you think? Let's go to menu. Let's go to analyze graph. What does y equal for the X-intercepts? What does y equal? X-intercepts, let what equals 0? Yes, we let the y equal 0. So can you see there it says 0? If I click on 0 and it says now which graph is it? Well, let's try that one. Click on that graph, lower bound. Is there any point in me going there? I want the X-intercept of that red graph. I'm going to go to the left of it, yeah, and then I'm going to drag it across. What does it say? It says negative 3.38. What is the y? 0. You would do that by hand. Now, we've got to do that again. So I'm going to go menu, analyze graph, and again, menu 6.1. And then which graph is it wanting? This one. Let's pick a point to the left, pick a point to the right. Look at that. Okay, that's that. I'm going to move this back down here. Oh, it's actually moved them together as a group. So, well, you know what? I'll keep it there. And finally, there's also this one. Now look, for the time being, that is the y. Now, look, it's not as good as finding y-intercepts. But what we're going to do is the y-intercept is when what equals 0? Okay, if x was 0 here, okay, for this blue one, if x was 0, what would y equal? I've got negative times negative 12 is positive 12. Exactly 4. Can you see? Look, these go. You can even see it though. Look, 1, 2, 3. Would you agree that that blue goes exactly through 4? Okay, so y-intercepts, probably not as helpful, but they're also easier to find just very quickly if you understand the concepts. Y-intercept is when x equals 0. Calculator will always find x-intercepts for you. Make sense? Okay. So how do we do it? Well, this is how we sketch it now. We need to get, if you do that, good luck getting even a mark. Maybe 1 mark out of 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to do to some scale here. I'm going to use the scale of my calculator, which is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that's 10. And let's label this with X. And I'm also going to label this with Y. Okay, now that's negative 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to be perfect science. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, Y's are actually going up to, say, 6.67, weren't they? So let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just want to see that you've got some idea with the scale. So, because when they intersect, if I go back for a second, what we want to do is I'm going to get a red pen now, okay? And I'm going to get a red pen. And I'm going to draw it in so you can see. And I'm going to do the red line in red. Makes sense. And you notice there, that's negative 3.38. So you don't need to be perfect. Here's negative 3. So negative 3.38 is there. Yeah? Doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be roughly in the right ballpark. Okay? And that, of course, goes through the y-intercept is when x equals 0. Do you think it looks like it's definitely above 4 to me? It is because it's 4.5, isn't it? 9 over 2. What's 9 over 2? 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4.5. Okay, if you do that like so, and you sketch it as y is equal to 9 on 2, well, we'll do it the other way around, mx plus c form. Okay, and we have labelled the coordinates with 2 decimal places, which is minus 3.38. Okay, so it's minus, let's just do that, minus 3.38 x, that x comes before y in the alphabet. Label coordinates with things now, please. And over here, that is going to be what? What's this coordinate going to be? What's x going to be? 0. And if you said 4.5, that's fine. okay? If you say 9 over 2, that's also fine. Now, I'm going to do the other line in green, okay? And the other line is probably going to be, if you have a look there, it goes exactly through 4, okay? 4, and we know that the X-intercept goes through 3.82, 3.82, let's just say there. And what we're going to do is we're going to join the dots, okay? Now, we label this as 3.82. X comes before Y, 0. That's another point. And finally, there's one thing we haven't done, or two things. We haven't labeled that yet. Let's just say that that is Y is equal to whatever your calculator spat out, that thing. Yeah? So we'll just call that, if you know what, I'd even let you say, if that's Y2, if you call that Y2, I'd even let you get away with saying that this is Y2. Yeah? If you did that, you save yourself time. Okay, so now, of course, we had the intersection, which we found as well. I moved it here just so it's out of the way. Negative 0.21, which is just to the left of the y-axis, and 4.22. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to get a little arrow because it's getting a bit busy there. Negative 0.21, comma 4.22 is the intersection, and voila, away you go. Now, in this video, I've been through some really key skills which you're going to need for your entire VCE and Year 10 mathematics. That is, first of all, how to use these calculators. Secondly, how to create a new document. Third, sketching. Control-C, copy. Solve. What is the shortcut to solve? Menu. 3, algebra. 3-1. That is the one that you need to remember as soon as possible, because you will do that thousands of times between now and when you graduate in 2023. Okay? You'll do it literally thousands of times. And you'll say, we know this shortcut. You'll know that once you practice it 10 or 20 times. Okay? What is the other one? What is the other shortcut once you're in the graph screen that we said to find the intersection? Menu 6-4 was for the intersection. You have to be inside the graph screen. And another one was menu 6-1. That is to find the X-intercepts. X-intercepts are when Y equals 0. And you notice with those intercepts and intersections that you needed to a left bound and a right bound. Yeah? Okay, I reckon that's about it. The one thing I will say, though, I might as well, whilst we've got you here, this video's gone for 23 minutes. Whilst I've got you here, I might as well, I'm going to pause the video just quickly. All right, so look, we're not going to have and go through and talk about some of the other functions we can in the calculator, but just so you know, in this test, on page 38, there's the lin-solve function. So when we get to solving simultaneous equations, yes, you'll need to do it by hand in part B, which is the short answer test with no calculator. But we can solve those using lin-solve, which is menu 3. Where do you think solve system of equations is? Menu 3, 7. And then you can choose whether it's a linear equation or not. So the instructions are there. Just note, you'll need to do that for your test next week. By the way, just, this class here, your test is the last lesson of next week, whenever that happens to be, okay? And the last thing I'll say is, on the very last page are the skills. The very last page, that page there, page 47, I've gone all the way back to page 1. Okay, this here, this is what we need you to be able to do. Find the intersection, intercepts, lin-solve, and use the solve function. Okay, so make sure that, look, 15 in your test, you've got 15 marks is your CAS section, calculator section, and then you've got 40 marks. A lot of students, as long as they know how to use their CAS, get close to full marks for that. Okay, imagine getting 15 out of 55 before you've even started your test. Then you do the short answer section, let's just say if you even, let's say you didn't do as well as you would have liked and you got 20. Well, 20 plus 15 is 35 out of 55. Have you passed? You have, haven't you? What got you over the line? Well, that boosted your score, didn't it? Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop here, and hopefully we can look through some of these other things in our next video.